Big day today, athlete builder. Got Jeff Saturday here. I'm in the library. He's at home in Georgia. And I was just talking to him beforehand. How do we even get to Jeff Saturday? I'm at the cigar bar years ago, 5 years ago, and I meet Brad Long, who's a chaplain with the Colts. And I tell Brad, I go, hey, my son's going to Ball State. He's going to play football, and I'm looking for a mentor, someone who's all about Jesus, but also about football. And he sends me over to Devon McDonald. They call him Devo. It was another. He works with athletes in action, putting chaplains with sports teams. And I met Devon, and we all been friends since then. He connected me with some other folks at the Colts, and then I saw him a little while back. And I go, hey, Devon, can you do you have anybody else you want me to have on the show? He goes, hey, would Jeff Saturday be cool? I go, yeah, probably. Yeah, I think so. And Jeff was kind enough to be on the show. And if you don't know Jeff, a little bit about him, from Georgia, played at North Carolina, went on to a awesome NFL career, most of it with the Colts, started in Baltimore, Super Bowl champ, 4-time All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler, a 1-time passing quarterback, one throw, former head coach for the Colts, in the Colts Ring of Honor, and as described by the talent scouts as during the draft of his rookie year, he was listed as an overachiever. Didn't get drafted, went as an undrafted free agent, went to Baltimore, and didn't last very long, and decided, I'm going to get into the electrical parts business, electrical supplies. Decided that wasn't for him. I goes, I'm able to give football another shot. So, Jeff, thanks for being here today, man. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Thank you.
I'm fired up, man. I tell you, Devo. If anybody knows him, they know this man is he's 7 degrees of separation from everybody. He is an absolute stud for the kingdom, just a soldier, man, and friend. One that I would say mentor. There's not a better guy to do it. He is as legit as they come. He and his wife Sheree have been Aaron and I, my wife and I, for a number of years, and yeah, man, it's so good to hear that he's with Jack and helping him in that walk, because we know it takes others around us to help encourage our kids, not just us, but he's a great one to do it.
Talks about his journey, played in the NFL for a number of years, and then one day he's still doing well. He's in the league, and he's thinking about ending everything. He's just so despondent. And then he found Jesus, and a guy with the Arizona team connected him. Maybe it was 𝗬𝗎𝗻𝘀𝘀, I can't remember. And been making an impact ever since. There's a few people, when I'm around them, you do feel closer to God. And he is absolutely one of them.
Yeah.
Everyone loves the Rocky stories, the Rudy stories. All those come from behind. So when I read about undrafted free agent was selling electrical supplies, you think about, Kurt Warner and things like that. And next thing you know, we're winning the Super Bowl. Not right at once, but can you talk about the whole 𝗬𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 and how it all came about, you actually coming back into the league after you were selling electrical supplies? Because that's a great story of resilience and second chances. Talk about that.
Yeah, so Nate was my roommate in college for all of our years in school, and Nate never started at Carolina, and but as the draft was happening, I was getting calls from at the time it was they did the rounds different. They still had 7 rounds, but they broke it up into different ways. The first through the third were, I think, on the first day, and then the next day was 4 through 7 or something. And so I didn't get a call early, and in the third round I started getting a call, but nobody. They would say, "Oh, we're going to pick you up next" or whatever. Didn't happen. 4 through the 7th, same thing, and I was devastated. I mean, you have to think I was 2-time All Conference. I was an academic All ACC guy for a couple of years, so I thought at least somebody was going to take a shot. I saw a lot of centers drafted that year, and so obviously I was devastated. And so my roommate 𝗀𝗏𝗀𝗀𝗀 gets signed as a free agent with the Giants, and is playing in New York when I'm selling electric supplies at an electric supply company of North Carolina. And those guys, Katie Kennedy was a absolute stud to me, a great boss. He would have led me into a successful career in that world. But I get a call, and he actually, I sat down with him. His office was a few doors down, and I went and sat down with KD, and he's like, "Listen, pursue your dream while you're young, because you're not getting younger." Um, and so he's like, you'll have a job if it doesn't work out. Don't worry about that, which was just a class act all the way around. But Nate gets picked up by the Colts at the end of the season. So I think it was the last three or four games of the '98 season. So I had been out of football almost a year, and he gets to Indy, and Bill Polian has this conversation. It's an open door policy. So Bill, the general manager of the Colts, gets a knock on his door one day from Nate. And so I tell people, like, there's 53 guys on the roster. Like, Nate was like 53 and a half. I mean, he was barely hanging on himself. So for him just to walk in the general manager's office to have this conversation is mind blowing in itself. But he told me, he's like, Jeff, I had played in New York, and I was now with the Colts, and you were better than all the centers that I was going against. And so he goes in and basically talks with Bill Polian, and Bill had actually been with the Carolina Panthers when I was at Chapel Hill and had scouted us. His story goes, he liked me. The other scouts did not like me as much. They said, I was as round as I was tall, blah, blah. But anybody knows Bill, if Bill liked me that much, Bill would have brought me in. So I tell Bill, don't put too much shine on yourself here, Bill. but in all fairness, he signs me, and Nate ends up, we're together on the team just a short stint because he ends up he gets released to the Rams. They win the Super Bowl that year in '99 that I'm on the Colts. But I tell you, as someone who does, who is blown away by selfless acts, and when I mean selfless, like there's no benefit to Nate to go do this, right? But when people do selfless acts, truly selfless acts, they blow my mind, and he did it, and the rest is history. You said the stats and all that. Unfortunately, we lost Nate a few years ago, and just one of the greatest things that ever happened in my life, all because a guy took a chance.
Mm. When I read about that story, he said that before he went into the office, he said a little prayer and says, "I'm nobody, but I know this to be true, so I'm just going to say it." And he did, and he put it out there. And I would say it's even more than a selfless act. It's a detrimental act, and that there's only 53. And even though he wasn't playing your position, they can still only have 53. So if they keep you, someone's got to go. And if he's 53 and a half, that puts him at tremendous risk. And he just seemed compelled to do it anyways. That's man, talk about teammate.
I never thought of it that way. That's a great point, Jim. You're exactly right. Yeah, we're all fighting for gigs, right? I mean, it don't matter how long you're being there. So that's an even better way of putting it. I like that. That's for sure.
What was it's different in high school than college than pros, but in each spot along the way, there's got to be this, oh shit, I'm in it now. So I'm now a high school player. I'm now a college player. This Mac Brown is legit, Tony Dungy, all this. What was your welcome to college and your welcome to the NFL moments where you're like, this is different. I need to be different?
So my going from high school to college was I go to Chapel Hill as a defensive lineman, and Eddie Williamson, who was the offensive line coach, came in and met with me and had watched me play guard in high school and said, "Hey, we got," and they did. Carolina had a stacked defensive line, right? And so they were. When I tell you they were loaded, like Marcus Jones, Rick Terry, Austin Robbins, and I can go through a list and a laundry list of guys who ended up being first round, second round picks throughout the NFL. They were all over there. And Eddie was like, hey, if you want to play early and you want to play every snap, you can come to the offensive line. You're a better offensive lineman, in my opinion, than a defensive lineman. And he said, and I would, you're aggressive. You're not scared to speak your mind. I would move you over to center and let you snap it. And I think that would be the best spot for you. And so I met with Eddie, and I decided, look, I'd rather play early than late. And so I moved over and transitioned right away. And I loved the center position. It gave me power to make calls. It gave me a different perspective on the game of how to learn about the game, what's happening behind, kind of behind the scenes. And Eddie was a great to that. And I wrestled in high school when I was a good wrestler. So my physical kind of transition, I redshirted. So I had a whole year to gain weight, put on mass with Jeff Madden, Mad Dog was our strength coach. And he taught me about explosive power and what that looks like and how to be more explosive. So I basically our whole class, in fact, every one of our class redshirted, and that was a class that ended up, I think we finished third or fourth in the country our senior year. A ton of guys went to the NFL, defense, but all because of Matt and Matt trusting that, hey, we'll redshirt, we'll build them up. And again, that was a good transition. I love the center position, and then I'm out of football, like you said, so I'm kind of watching it. When I get to the NFL, Howard Mudd thinks I'm a long snapper. Who's the offensive line coach? He didn't even know I was a player. So he used to laugh all the time about, no one even knew what you did. And so they bring me over and they put me at guard. And Mudd just basically looks at me. He's like, hey, I want you to be the most aggressive guy on the field. And they had just drafted Brandon Burlsworth from Arkansas. And so he was going to be a guard, and they wanted me to go over to guard. And Mudd basically just said, go jump in this guy's face and make it a street fight. And I want to see what you got. And he told me exactly what he wanted me to do, how he wanted me to look. And I just replicated exactly what he said. He's like, God gave you thumbs to go grab, beep. And so that's what I did, bro. I went to dudes and made it a street fight for as long as I could. And he loved it. And it's funny because I played guard my first year, and I played both sides. I started a game because the guy in front of me, Steve McKinney, has an emergency appendectomy. And literally on a Saturday. So he's practiced the whole week for the Eagles. He and I ride together to the airport. He calls me. He's like, I'm not feeling great. I'm going to stop by the house, grab some clothes. I'm like, okay. He calls me. He's like, Jeff, I'm on the way to the emergency room. I'm about to have surgery. So I'm going to get on the plane, Jim, and Mudd is at the bottom of the stairs because, you walk out on the tarmac and then walk up the stairs to the plane. And he looks at me. He goes, hey, you're starting. Don't F it up. And so, roommate on the road. So literally from the plane flight to my hotel room, dude, I am sweating. I'm nervous. I'm like, holy crap. Like, I didn't practice all week. You get as a backup, you get like 5 snaps a week. I get nothing. I mean, I play teams, but that's it, So I knew the plays, but I wasn't like ready. I studied, like each and every player that I was going to face, all those kinds of things. So, man, I go to Philly and I jump off sides the very first play because it's a silent count.
Perfect.
So, right. But in fairness, I end up balling out, man. And Jim Mora actually gave me a game ball. And I sprung Edgerrin, I think, for his longest run in his career early in the game. And Mudd was like, this is what I want. And I went from left guard to right guard. And then the next season, he let me battle out at center, and I took the center job and never gave it up until I left for Green Bay.
Jack was playing middle linebacker for a long time, and they moved him to outside. And he asked Devon, hey, is this right? And Devon's like, for sure. He goes, well, you haven't seen me play. He goes, this is where you're at. This is where God wants you to be.
Yeah.
And it looked like God wanted you to go from defense to the offense, and then he wanted you to start one day, right? So you trusted in your coaches, and he gave you directions and some cues. Now, the one cue, don't fuck it up. That's a terrible cue. I write about that. There's a Bill Buckner story, if you remember him.
Yeah.
First base for the Red Sox.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And he's, you know what happened, right? He bobbled that ball, right? Game 6. He's interviewed before the playoffs start. And the Red Sox are favored for the whole run. And he goes, hey, man, Bill, what do you think? He goes, man, well, the dream is to win the World Series. Of course, the nightmare, he says, is that it's late in the series and you bobble a ball and you cost yourself a game in the series. He said that out loud with an ESPN interview. So it's already in his psyche. So when you tell a kid who's going up to the plate, don't strike out, he's gonna strike out. So it's saying, hey, don't fuck up. Well, here we are. That's the worst. But then balling out, man, that's just turning it around. You wrote that you like the physicality of football, and there's no less physicality than when you're playing on the line. But that center position, that's more of a thinking man's position as well as the physicality. Talk about how that transition, because like on defense, it's see ball, get ball a lot of times, or set the edge, things like that. But on offense, there's a lot more going on to them, especially the center. So talk about having to learn and film study, and you talk about knowing the other team's teammates or the opponents and stuff. Talk about all the actual brain power going into that position.
Yeah, so that started in Chapel Hill with Eddie Williamson, and he wanted to give me calls. So we would either slide protect or man protect based on what we looked at. So like a right or a west, which were the two couple calls, right? And how I learned is I screwed it up, and we played the Tigers my freshman year, and it's again I'm playing as a freshman now, and I'm rotating with a starting gig and calling slide protection. And I didn't realize that by doing that, I was keeping a running back in. I just thought it affected the line, right? Because I was so kind of young to the game that I didn't realize, oh, well, I'm keeping Leon Johnson and Curtis Johnson in the backfield as opposed to letting them get out into the routes. And so it's a stronger protection, but it makes the reads much more difficult. And so Eddie, who does not yet off had bro, just tripping me like, what are you seeing? I'm like, well, he's all set this way. I see the will linebacker over here. Long story short, I learned in a hurry that you should know what everybody's job is. And from that point on, I was dedicated to understanding the game, not just for my job, but how it impacts everybody else's job. And so when I went to the NFL, Peyton was already the quarterback. He had been there a year. They were 3-13. And, as I go in, I told you I played guard, but I learned all the calls because I want to know what the tackle's responsibility was. I want to know what the center was. I want to know what the backs were doing, what the tight end was doing to make sure that whatever I was doing wasn't screwing somebody else up. And so when Mud told me, hey, we're going to put you back at center, this is your position. First of all, you love to talk and you love to tell everybody else what to do. So and you like the noise. And so I did. I love that about the position that, I would look at safety tilt or where linebackers were plus or minus over, or the way that alignment's set up for blitzes to be effective, and the tells. And then when you get to work with Peyton Manning, who is probably the most intellectual football player maybe of all time, but definitely that I ever played with, understanding defenses, understanding where things should be, how they have to end up working together, and never being afraid to ask why. I remember Peyton told me, he and I were problem solvers. We're on the field problem solvers, right? And he would argue a lot with Howard and Tom Moore about protections, and not in a negative way, but like making sure, trying to understand why. And I remember Howard one time says, you don't need to know why, just this is how we're going to block it. And he goes, no, I'm going to know why. And I remember he told me later on, he was like, that's what they told Archie. And Archie would get freaking smoked, right? He's like, oh, no, it's picked up. Don't worry about it. He's like, no, I am going to worry about it. And he said, we all should worry about it, right? And so that was kind of our mindset, is we were going to be the ones that crossed that white line. You can coach us all you want, but at the end of the day, we want to know why, and we want to know how to fix a problem, because you ain't out there. And so that was our mentality. And Peyton and I worked together extremely well. We would get together on Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, and Thursday nights about blitz pickup, about run game fits, all the different things that we saw. And that's probably why I love the game as much as I do to this day, because it comes alive. It's not just I'm blocking the guy in front of me. It becomes much more about how all the puzzle pieces together. And I think that's a great lesson in life, right? Is that the O-line is a team within a team, but every position kind of feels like that. So understand where they all have to be and what their problems are, make you a great teammate.
Lots of life lessons there. I don't know if this is the correct assessment or not, but what I tell people is that if you know your position perfectly, you're only halfway there. And then if you know all those on, in your unit, then you're 60%. Everyone on your offense or defense, then you're only at 70. 80% is your other team's offense or defense. Then there's to get to 90% knowledge, expertise, you got to know everybody in your conference. And then 100% knowledge is all the teams that you play against. So when people say, well, I did my job, I said, well, maybe, but you didn't see the other person was out of position. You didn't move that person, so you guys still got beat. And net, you guys lost. And all that matters is the win or the loss. So finding that root cause analysis on that play transfers to, hey, what's the problem I'm having with my wife right now? What's this problem I'm having at work? Why can't we make more sales? What's the root cause? If you know why, then you can go ahead and try some new things and make some other adjustments. If you just go through blindly, next thing you know, your business is in trouble, your marriage is in trouble, and your team just lost the whole, you went 0-17, right? Yeah. So that curiosity, constantly asking questions, and that knowledge place, that knowledge piece, and doing that, using that Socratic method of just constantly finding why, uncovers the truth, and now you got a shot to win, right? Oh man.
Right? Like, I think part of why we were so successful is we were all extremely accountable and understood, right? Like, we're all going to screw it up at some point, but like understanding why did we screw it up? We would ask each other at the time, hey, what was your thought process here? Or what was your worry? Or what were you looking at? And we used to say that eye in the sky doesn't lie. We have a stripe down the back of our helmet. And somebody be saying, "Oh, I was looking over to my right." No, your stripe is facing the other way. So you're looking, your eyes aren't tracking what you're saying. And I used to tell guys that played beside me, don't lie to me, bro. Like, shoot me straight. I don't care if you whiff. I don't care if it was your fault, it was my fault. But tell me the truth. That way we can really fix something. Mm-hmm. I think of what we as a society do is try to cover up and minimize the embarrassment or the mistake on our part. And the reality is you can't fix the problems that way. That you have to get, to your point, to the root level, which is painful. Like, it's go, he was better than me on that play, or he knocked me on my butt, or I whiffed, or I thought wrong. Whatever it was, I made the wrong call. But I used to tell guys, I make a wrong call, ride with me. At least if 11 of us are wrong, we can make it right. If it's just one, we're all going to be screwed. And so we would have that mentality, but accountability, and just trust that you're all going to have that level of ownership. It translates to success on the field, and it's why teams that you see, it's not about talent. It's that little, that's the line, right? To make good teams great and great teams champions it's those little minute points that people own, and they own it for themselves. They don't put it on a coach. They don't put it on somebody else. They own it. That takes you to the next level.
I think even before that, what you said was we trusted each other. So within your culture, you have a level of trust where you could be vulnerable, where ego is now the enemy. You're not trying to just protect yourself. You're thinking about the entire unit, the entire team, and the results. So with that trust, you can say, I messed up here, because you're not going to get just crucified for one play, because you going into the season, you're going to say, hey, man, if you're 97% efficiency, there's still 3% mistakes, right? That's right. So let's just acknowledge that, and then constantly having that feedback loop where if you can trust, you can then evolve and push. And the cultures that have that, they then keep looking for those nuances to elevate. Would you say that there's some organizations where you can consistently see, you know what, their culture consistently has these teams in positions where they're going to be decent, maybe not 17-0, but they're not 0-17. They're always real close to, they're above 500 or right at it, maybe a little bit below, but they're always, at 500 or above, because their cultures and how they set that up for everyone to have success, because they have buy-in, and it's easier when you're not just getting crushed all the time.
100%. Yeah. I mean, usually I can tell how teams are going to be in the preseason, about 4 or 5 games into the regular season. You can really begin to see what they're going to look like what pieces and parts are really there. How good can they really be? Can they really make, and you'll get an occasional outlier, right? Like in anything, right? There's always a chance for, kind of an outlying situation that works itself. But the truth is, you can see based on culture why certain teams stay as successful as they are while others struggle or get kind of stuck in mediocrity. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is when I'm looking at and I'm evaluating teams and how teams do, how they play well and how they don't play well. You can hear it, right? Do all the things that the head coach is saying or the coordinator saying, does that all correlate with what these players are saying? And if it doesn't, you might get a couple wins here and there. It ain't gonna work, man. I don't care how good you think you are, how talented you think your team is. Everybody thinks they got talent. I mean, you look at the NFL. Everybody thinks they got great players. Everybody, I mean, every season, right? Like you go through it, and they're like, "Oh, we got this, we got that." It ain't got nothing to do with that. It's how you put it all together that ultimately turns into wins and losses.
I talk to these other coaches and the players, and they'll say, "Well, this guy's really great, but he wasn't in a system where he and the coach jived, or he and the system jive, or the offense or defense. There wasn't really a good fit." And that happens at companies. Some companies want a lot of yes men. Some other companies want a lot of good sales guys. So part of it is having that fit. And if, like you said, from the culture on down, from the top on down, if it's not a good fit, right or wrong, this is going to go nowhere. When you say you're meeting with Peyton Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, that's on top of normal practice times, right? And there's a lot of, there's stress, right? There's stress. There's physical stress. There's emotional stress. There's family stress, right? There's performance. There's money. All these stresses on the line. How do you guys keep things light in the locker room? Because enjoyment's one of our core values. Like, you have to love this a little bit. You have to love getting your ass beat a little bit, right? But how do you keep things light during the game or in practice or when it's hot as shit outside, or when you're playing a place like I'm from Cleveland and it's cold as shit outside? Like, how do you guys keep things light? Because you got to have that release, and you can't just be going out getting drunk Monday through Friday,
No.
So how do you guys do that?
No, it's a great question. So I thought Bill actually did a great job of putting it together. And it was funny, even Jim Moore, I had Dungy, and I had Caldwell all in. And it was funny because we were what they call team-led. We were player-led teams. We weren't coach-led teams. And so I tell people all the time that the coach sets the vision. Players create culture, and those players within the vision of the coach, it can't compete with what the vision is with the head coach. It's got to fall in line. But as players, we had a general love for the game, and so, but we had different styles, right? Like when I first got there, I remember Adam Meadows. And Meadows was like he was our right tackle. He was a super funny guy, and Tarek Glenn was. And then I was very light, like on game day, I'm making fun of dudes. Like I try to keep it light purposely, right? You work your butt off during the week. You don't want to go in so wound that some guys that were like Ryan Lilja was super tight. I mean, he was nervous before every game. He was wound up in the game. Like, I'd put stuff on fire, like, this dude's going to wear you out. You know what I mean? Just having, but there has to be a level of joy in playing it. And I think when you find like that, because the work is the work. I don't care what you're doing. There's tough days at the office. I don't care whatever it is, whatever profession. If you think I love going to practice and you find days you don't feel it, but it's those push through days again where someone else picks up the joy part, right, and has fun with you, enjoy it. But I think cutting up with each other and befriending relationships matter. And I say this, I get to speak all over the country, and I use this all the time. Relationships are the most important part of any team that there is. Now, I don't care about positions, I don't care, but the relationships, because once you care about that person and you have some type of accountability or respect for that person, then the work that you put in is not only for yourself, it's for them. Like I used to tell guys all the time, I'm playing for the guy beside me, right? Like if I don't do my job, I'm inadvertently hurting him, or I'm hurting the defense or the special teams. And football I played all kinds of sports, right? Football translates to business and to life more than any other because it requires all 11 doing their job, but doing your part that keeps the thing afloat. And so, but relationships are the most important part of it. You got to care. And again, that doesn't mean you're going to be best friends with everybody, right? I didn't agree with every teammate I had. We weren't best friends. I tell you all the time, like, don't believe video. I mean, don't believe movies and TV shows, right? Like we don't all always get along. That's okay. Like we can go about it in different ways. But I was sure going to show up and perform not only for myself but for them because that was my role, and I felt the same of my. So I think that's where the joy, and then finding outlets, right? Like we would do pranks in training camp, pranks throughout the locker room. We would cut up, like we would have times where, that we enjoy together. And I think building within your team, like the offensive line, we would go out to eat at 𝗀𝗄𝗃𝗀, which was it's a restaurant there in Zionsville every Friday, right? And we would gorge ourselves on food on Friday. Just hang out. Other guys would do dinners with position groups, but building within that team, those relationships, that's what brought us to that.
Just a small little follow-up question. Like being from Cleveland, I like, unfortunately, the Browns, and the love Joe Thomas, and you can see it like similar to yourself. He's not playing, so now he's a lot leaner, right? Just like you.
Yeah.
And you would talk about how much weight he would gain and lose just from a practice in the heat in training camp, also through the season. So you talk about gorging yourself at 𝗀𝗄𝗃𝗀, and you have 6, 7, 8 offensive linemen walk in. Just for context, what's that table look like with what's coming at you? And the restaurant's got to be happy, but the chef's got to be like freaked out, like, oh shit, they're back. Okay, here we go.
So Chris, the owner, we would tell him, and he would have certain dishes. It was like family style, right? So he'd have, it was usually 10 of us or somewhere around that number would always up. And so, I mean, there's like 12 pizzas, things of pasta, there's meat dishes, you name it, man. It's all spread out and devoured food. And I was one of those guys, I had to force feed to keep my weight up, similar to Joe, right? That I could easily be 275, 280, but I need to be 295. So to make sure that we ate and took care of, and we were, John Tureen was our strength coach, our nutritionist as well, but he was always on us about like our food intake, and it's fuel, not food, right? Fuel, not food. And so we'd have these conversations. Well, Friday, we broke all the rules. We carb loaded, made sure to eat as bad as whatever knew that was going to be our afternoon. We were going to be, and it was going to be a race to the toilets after we did the. We put it on our body. Let's put it like that. But perfect. I mean, Chris knew every week that was what we were going to do, and we had a freaking ball doing it.
Oh man, I used to compete amateurly in strongman and then powerlifting. So at my heaviest, I'm 6'3", but I was 320. Now I'm just 250 because I'm 50 years old and you can't compete like that all the time. And my kids will be asking like, why are you eating that many eggs or that much steak? And I said, in most things here, it takes what it takes. And for what I'm trying to do, it's going to take this kind of mass to move other kinds of mass, and force is mass times acceleration. So I need to be able to apply force. And when you're in the football world, you're trying to apply force while you're running and burning calories. So, when they say, well, I'm naturally at 200 pounds, I'm like, well, that's fine, but you're not a linebacker at 200 pounds. That's fine, but this is what it is, and you're going to get crushed. And so it takes what it takes. And I say that all the time because you pointed out it took the extra film study to get to where you want to be comfortable knowing all the positions on the team. It took the extra food to be where you want to be, even though your natural body weight was less. It took the culture of being accountable and being vulnerable with your teammates and the coaches. Talk about some players on the other side of the ball, on other teams, that you're like, oh shit, this is going to be a rough day today. I need to be ready to go. Or, oh shit, this guy's an asshole. I better be ready to go. You don't necessarily need to say names about the asshole unless you want to. I don't give a shit. But, what's coming at you, right? And not everyone is the same kind of person, good or bad. So you're like, hey, I know what's coming up this week, and this guy's really good. You're going against Ray Lewis, and he's really good.
Yeah. So each week, you kind of have your matchup of the week right in your head. So guys like Vince Wilfork, who played for the Patriots for a number of years, was a freaking tank, right? Ted Washington, who was 6'5", 370, just a mammoth. Pat Williams was there in Buffalo for a while, and then he moved on. But Zach Thomas at linebacker. You said Ray Lewis was at linebacker. Like, I face these dudes week in and week out, right? And under like Marcus Stroud down in Jacksonville. John, I can't think of John's last name. He was he was from Tennessee. And he was a big 6'8" monster of a human being. But we had matchups. Albert Hainsworth was in our division. So we had so many good players that we would face. And just knowing what it required of the week and understanding, like, when you're going against a blue collar guy who was going to have his face, 6 inches off the ground, he's pulling through you and he's just a man child, or you're going to play an guy who's going to jump swim you and try to hit backside gaps and try to make plays. But going through each and every one of those. But the I played. I'll tell you funny. When I played John Randall I was a rookie, and John was at the end of his career. And our defensive line coach had coached him. He was actually who inducted him to the Hall of Fame, John Tierling. And so I prepped for him all week, and I was getting ready. And I see him, and he had another guy named Chris, I think it was Hogan, was on the other side of John Randall. But they had like the face paint. And I remember John, man, he is cussing me from the first snap to the end of the game, just ripping. I think he had looked like at my wife's name and my parents, saying everything, right? And about 3/4 in the game, we're winning the game, but it's a tight one or something. I remember I looked over and I was like, John, bro, I was like, you need Jesus, dog. You got issues. And he's dying laughing. The referee starts dying laughing. And I'm in your head. I was like, you're in my head, dude. You played amped like that, and you had guys who never said a word. And didn't matter. It was whatever got them. But I love dudes who I like to talk to. So, we'd have conversations going back and forth throughout games, and I can do it either way. I can be quiet. I can be loud. We can do whatever you want. But those are the fun. Like I'll be honest with you. I don't remember the scores. I don't remember every play of games. I remember things like that. Like, I remember bus rides. I remember different moments in games where you cutting up with the guy. I remember 𝗀𝗻𝗄𝗀, who was one of the best players I ever played against, and he's now passed as well. But he was in Denver, and Peyton and I had a mix-up on the snap count, and the ball fell, and it was like 6 inches of snow. It was the one that Vanderjack kicked like 250-yarders in a blizzard. But we're both under the pile, and big 𝗀𝗻𝗄𝗀, who's about 400 pounds, lays on us, and his belly's like in our mask. And so our snap count, and when I speak throughout the country, it was 1 and 2. But it was truly it was another way you could say 1 or 2 using male genitalia.
Right.
So we're under the pile saying it was on balls. It was on his belly's stopping both of the things. So it's moments like that you look back and you go, man, like, those were the times, man. We had a freaking ball, right? It didn't work. We worked out. We won. But on the plane ride back, there was some cut up about things like that.
I love that. It's that camaraderie, those moments. The same thing that when people go through boot camp, or maybe your pledge to fraternity or whatever. But I'm watching Tiger Woods and I'm listening to Tiger Woods, and he would wear red on Sundays as just a little reminder that he's Tiger Woods. And one of the ways he would work to intimidate other golfers, they'd tee off and one ball went further, and they might be on the same line, but Tiger doesn't even stop to look at the first ball to see if it's his or not. He just walks past it, and he goes, there's no way you're out driving me. He just keeps on walking. I know I always hit it further than you, whatever. So there's these things that people do, these little nuances to try to intimidate, like a guy's cussing you out, like Alvin Mack from the program. What are things that people do to, like, apply pressure And then mindset wise, how do you and others handle pressure?
Yeah.
Because preseason game is an AFC championship game. Like contract game and then the year is different, right? You're trying to make the squad, right? There's pressure that's elevated sometimes. Talk about how people apply pressure and how athletes can have some processes or habits to handle it.
Yeah, so that's actually a great question. It was one of those things when I did a little interim coach thing for the Colts. I tried to implement, and it was because they hadn't done it at that point or whatever. But we would always make practice the hardest it could be. So when they would draw up defenses for the plays that we were scripting for the week going into the game, we wanted some odd looks thrown in. So we would ask the coach, hey, throw us in a bear front or throw us in an under bear or an over bear, throw us in, a different look, give us a 5-man walk down, like, we called it a 5-0 look, or give us the two linebackers plus up in the A gaps and then bailing, and sometimes they're blitzing, but make it hard where we have to sort it out and figure it out in practice so we're not surprised in games. And I tell people all the time, I think, like, we had great look teams, very great look for a game. Robert Mathis, Dwight Freeney, like we would give each other looks to make it hard. But it did get to the game that we all understood what was really going to happen. Peyton wanted the toughest coverage on the back end. The easy stuff will take care of itself. But we wanted to know, okay, if something does happen, what would be, we would often ask the defense coordinator, if you had to stop this, what would you do differently than this team is doing? And then we put some in. We put them in some. And part of that is understanding practice doesn't have to be perfect. Practice is exactly that word. You're practicing it so that you can meet perfection when it really matters. But you have to practice things you're not going to be successful at. And being okay going back. I mean, we had some days that were freaking ugly. I mean, practice was ugly. And you go back and you'd be like, oh, we're about to get boat raced. This team is going to beat the brakes off of us. And by the time you got to Sunday, it was a greased wheel, right? Now with no bearings were burning up, bro. We were smooth as silk. So understanding that part of it, but I think encouraging tough days and tough preparation is really what manifests big time games and big time performances. And so whether that was an AFC championship game, whether it was week 4, whether it was the Super Bowl, I had done that with myself all the way through my career and always felt like that paid the biggest dividends. I mean, if you're walking in and you want practice to be light and be easy, and you know what's funny, and I'll share this real quick. Andy Reid is like everybody loves Andy, right? I mean, everybody loves the way he is. They call him, what is it? I forget his nickname, the Walrus. I don't know, whatever his nickname is. They all love him, and he does funny commercials. But dude, his practices are long and they're hard. Like his training camps are hard. He works guys hard, and but players still love him. And I think that was part of, like, when 𝗀𝗪cie came, or even with more, our practices were hard. There wasn't nothing easy about what we were doing, but he assured you, hey, I'm going to take care of you on the other end, and I'm going to treat you like men. I'm not going to have you come in for a bunch of useless meetings, but when we are here, we're going to go 100 miles an hour. And I think that part translated to us when we got to games feeling like we could play loose, because we had seen the hardest it was going to be, and now it matters. So I think that matters, and how you take pressure off yourself is by the prep work you do in advance.
Yep. Jordan will say he was never worried about the shots because he did all the work leading up to it. And, when you and I are talking about what we're about here with Athlete Builder, there's mindset, knowledge, and working with teammates in your head. And physically, there's your training, nutrition, and recovery. And you're talking about knowledge and physical training, making it hard. So as a high school, the standard is X, and then college it's Y, and Z
Right.
the pros it's Z. But at each instance, if confidence comes from the reps you just had, people get through Navy SEAL Hell Week, they have a lot of confidence because they just did something really fucking hard, right?
Yeah.
So when you do, hey, I'm doing so much harder work because I'm doing this extra knowledge prep Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm doing the extra nutrition prep. I'm doing the extra physical prep. I'm not just training hard on the field for that 100% for those 3 hours. I'm training hard at my nutrition. I'm training hard at my recovery. I'm doing all the things. I'm doing all the trips to Amore, right? So when you keep raising that standard, now you got a shot to say, hey, yeah, you know what? I deserve to have this confidence because I went out and earned it. So
Yeah.
when they come at me, I'm not going to know all the scenarios, but I'm as prepared as anyone else can be. I got a good shot, so let's just go.
Amen. And I tell you, physical preparation, that's the other thing. Um, fatigue will make a coward of us all. That's
Mm.
one of the greatest sayings that I've ever been around, and it's so true. And I remember when I would train, I'd start training in March, and a lot of times we played into February or close, right? Like we were on good teams. And so, we had a lot of playoff games. We had all those. I would tell guys, I would start like long distance running in March and April, right? And at 300 pounds, you're doing 3-mile runs, and you have times and until you basically work it down as the season goes. But I can tell you this, like I used to say, you ain't gonna outwork me. Like I'm not. I can tell you this: when it comes game day, I won't be the one tapping. You might get the best of me. You might be stronger. You might be better. But from a work perspective, I will not be quit. That will not happen. So whatever I got to dial up to make me feel like I want to quit when that's where I got to go. And I used to tell guys all the time because they're always trying to replace you, right? College the same way. Let me tell you, man. I used to tell guys, I got 3 kids. If you think I'm giving you my job, you've lost your mind. You better come take it because it ain't gonna be given away. And it's the fact, right? It's the mindset of preparing and making it as difficult on yourself handle, wanting to quit, breaking yourself, maybe not being successful. Like I said, there were days you walk the field going, God, I got my butt whipped today. But by God, I had this guy, Brandon Hicks, who was on the scout team for us. He and I are still buddies. I used to call him dog legs because he could in all kinds of different ways, bro, and just pop back and play. But I try not to cuss, right? I'm a Christian, so I try not to cuss. And he would make me cuss in practice. So I kind of apologize to Hicks. I'd be like, B. Hicks, I'm sorry. He would always laugh. I was like, testimony every day, But by God, when it was Sundays, these dudes are easy. I was like, I can get these guys. Like this is not because mindset wasn't as sharp and my body wasn't physically ready on a Wednesday as it was going to be on a Sunday. But if he pushed me past my point, he knew he could get more out of me. And it takes guys like that, right? Of the guys you're going against forcing you to do more than you might want to at that moment. And it translates. It translates to never being, not being fatigued, not being broken, but pushing through in the biggest moments.
The great coach Louis Simmons out of Westside Barbell.
Oh yeah.
He would say, if you walk with the lame, you'll develop a limp. So for him and his whole gym, the whole culture of that gym was one thing that was impossible to replicate. So everyone that trained there, mindset wise, mentality wise, volume wise, we're just at a whole different level. And we got everyone swimming and
going. They were beasts.
They were beasts, yes, animals. I asked you about other players going up against. What about places? I like this stadium. I like these fans. These fans are nuts. I like to see them get all wound up. You see hockey fans; those people are wound up. You see soccer fans down in South America or rugby fans in New Zealand, right? Those people are wound up about what's about to transpire on that field or that pitch or that rink. Talk about a couple stadiums or fans that you like, man, this place is crazy. This is nuts. I can't wait to go back. Like Jordan always loved Madison Square Garden.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
So talk about that for you and your experiences.
I would say the toughest place. So Patriots obviously was a tough stadium because of how good they were, and they were kind of our contemporary, right? Like we would go back and forth. We all won a bunch of championships, and would face each other quite a bit. So that was a tough place to play because you knew their fans were going to be nuts. They're going to be liquored up. It's usually going to be a night game because it's going to be prime time. So you knew that was going to be lit up. Seattle was a wild place to play. They were super loud. Kansas City is the loudest outdoor stadium. I can remember in the playoffs, Rick DeMullen, who was my guard, he and I's face masks were touching, and we could not hear each other. We literally ran a draw play, and it was a pat. It was a screen, and neither of us got out the screen because we both heard a different play. We couldn't hear a thing, dude. They were nuts. So that was, and then New Orleans inside was crazy. Their fans were nuts. Oakland, the Raiders were, while all the Buffalo was a great place to play. But Buffalo was cool because afterwards, all their fans wanted to hang out and have a beer. So that, they'd open up the RVs and everybody kind of hangs. So that was a different environment. That was a fun place. But yeah, man, those were the toughest that I played. Those 3 or 4.
Mm. I've been to Buffalo once. Cleveland was playing there, and it was all snow and ice, and like the fans are all singing all game long about coming to Buffalo, and I like to party, but that place was, those guys were getting, it wasn't even cool, great snow. It was more sleet and rain. It was that just crap, and they were just, the more it got worse, the happier they got. Like they could not believe it. It was absolutely fun. And then Jim Kelly would have people over at his house all the time after games, and it was just a huge party.
The coldest place I ever played, you said about Cleveland. The coldest I ever played was when Cleveland reopened, and it was on the water right there. Mm-hmm. And I think it was late October or late November. I can't remember, but there was a lake issue, and so the snow and ice was coming over the lake, over the stadium, and just dumping onto us, and it was sideways. And when I tell you, it was blinding. And this is before they had heated benches. So we had, those aluminum benches that you would sit on, bro. And when I tell you, that was my cleats wouldn't go in the ground because the ground was so frozen. I think it was like 12-9. It was an awful game. I hand in between 2 face masks. I was like, the dog pound was out in effect. That was another one that was the coldest. That was the coldest I ever was in a game, because to your point, it wasn't just the snow. Because I played in 3 feet of snow in Buffalo. I played out in Denver. But this was like that rain, sleet, blowing like 40 or over the stadium down in your face. Oh, how people go sit through a game. I'm watching that on TV. Ain't no way I'm sitting in the stands. But people love it.
A lot of alcohol involved for all those fans. I've been there, me included. A little trivia, and I know they're planning to redo the stadium somewhere else. When they built the current one, there's 4 corners of this oval of the end zone, or in the 2 different end zones, and 3 of them have openings. And it was by design so that extra air comes whipping through that stadium off the lake. It actually makes it colder. It creates a little bit of a draft, so it makes it shittier. And so
whoever engineered it knew what they were doing, because it's freaking miserable.
Miserable. Yep. It's different. You're almost my age. I'm 50, and when you were playing sports, it wasn't the same as it is now. Travel sports is a growing huge thing. It's a whole different industry. So if you had some advice for middle school, or not really like it's the parents, and then there's the athletes, and then there's high school, the parents and the athletes, and college, like just because you're playing 4 sports, soccer, wrestling, right? Not just football. Whereas I got kids that I train, they're playing softball 9 months out of 12, and they're 10 years old, 11, and I keep coming at them saying, here is a better formula. And I keep getting told I'm crazy. And maybe I probably am, but you have advice for these parents and these athletes of like, hey, you want to build them mentally and physically. Here's a couple tips.
All right, so this is going to get, because I coached high school football for a while and loved it. I love that age group. I think make the most impact at that age group, and I still love all those kids are now getting married, which is unbelievable. They call me, they got kids, and I still have them as a 15 to 18-year-old in my brain, right? And so we have these conversations, but here's the thing: all the travel money that you're spending, that you think, but so that your kid can get a scholarship somewhere. If you save that money, you can put them through college. Rest assured, bro, you spending some jack on these kids. That's one. So don't come at me as I got to have a scholarship nonsense, because that stuff to me is part of scholarship athletes are genetics. And unfortunately, you don't control that. The good Lord does. And so I tell you all the time, I have, I was, 6'2.5", 6'3" and some change, or maybe 6'2" and some change, 6'3", whatever it is. I had a mean disposition and I was very athletic, right? My parents didn't like, you're going to go play football. I loved football. So I trained hard. I wanted to do it. I want to do all those things. But I will say this, I was a better football player because I was a great wrestler. I understood and played baseball. I was a good baseball player. I was a good soccer player, so I worked my footwork. I did all of those things, and I could take something from all of those sports and apply it, right? I apply leverage principles from wrestling to football. I understood angles because of soccer that I could go when I played defense in football. I understood what angle I need to go to part at. All of those things, whether it's basketball, whether they all contribute to hand-eye coordination some other way. It is God love you, and I love sport. I love all those things, but we have gotten out of control on everybody spending selling their soul, and then these kids that play sport by the time they're 15 or they're having freaking surgery, whatever all this craziness is, man. And like even the 7-on-7 stuff now with football, these kids, first of all, they're not getting taught great habits because football ain't played 7-on-7. You got guys trying to hit the quarterback, which changes everything. But on top of you're just fatiguing your body. Like, go do something else. Take time and go do something else because at the end of it, it's going to end for all of us at one point. Some earlier than others. But, man, enjoy what you're doing. This is what I told my opening meeting. I want your kid to want to come back and play next fall. That's what I care about, right? Like, I want to make him the best football player I can make him. But at the end of the day, I can't make them. That's what God love you. I'll train him. I'll work him as hard as you can. But understand what you're asking of this kid. If you make them hate it, they're going to ultimately quit. I want guys to hate doing what they're doing. I want them to love it. We try to have fun practicing. I'd take them places after games, varsities or whatever it was, little food places here in Atlanta, and we'd cut up, man, and we'd have a good time. And I wish more amateur sport were based on that because it's really about lessons and about teamwork and about learning who you are as a person much more than the end goal. Turn out to go be a pro, God love you. But it was probably in your genes much more than it was in your pee-wee or high school coach. I'm just being.
Yeah. Yes. The science behind that is that neurologically, you play multiple sports, you develop different parts of your brain, so now you're going to be better. You talk about hand-eye coordination or the angles. That's how it manifests physically. It's still 7% of kids play college and 2% play D1, no matter how you cut it up. So I tell, if you love it, then you're going to do all the crap that you don't want to do. You're going to go to bed on time. You're not going to be out drinking. You're going to do extra lifting so you're stronger and faster. If you don't love it, you really don't have a shot because those 6 things, mindset, knowledge, and teammates, training, nutrition, recovery, if you don't, however you're great in a couple of those things, you said you're athletic, you're intelligent, so your knowledge, that's how you have your competitive advantage. That's a business term, right? Those are your competitive advantages. That's how you're smashing people. Your weak links, your limiting factors that's holding you back, maybe you're not that good at recovery and you're not doing your mobility work. Well, that's how you get hurt and that's how you lose, right? So I tell these kids, you have to maximize those 6 things. And if you don't love it, you're not going to want to maximize it. That leaves all those that are gifted that don't really have to work that hard. Those kids are going to make it because they don't have to work that hard. They're already going to be there. If you want to make it and be there, you have to love it because I'm going to make you do a whole bunch of shit that no one wants to do at age 15, at age 17. And without doing that, you're not going to get there. But if you love it, you got a shot. Either way, football in the NFL is not a career, it's an experience, they say. Average lifespan is 3 years or less. So even if you're there, you make good money for 3 years, it's still just an experience. You're 25 years old, see you later. You got another 50 years of your life to go. What now? Like, I don't know your finances, not my business, but I can look at some of your contracts and I can say, well, Jeff Saturday probably doesn't need to work. However, I also see NFL analysts at ESPN get up, first take, Unsportsmanlike, Sports Center, and NFL Live. Well, shit, that sounds like a full deal for someone with 3 kids, and his wife still must like him a little bit because she's still around. So it's still just an experience. You still got something else to do if you want to make an impact the rest of your life. So apply these lessons if you learn them, and then you got a shot. Otherwise, just go somewhere else.
And I think that's the other thing about like specialized sports is you get blinded to believe that you're excellent. Like I can count on played. I've got 4 or 5 Hall of Famers on my own team. I played against a number of Hall of Famers. With all that being said, I can count on one hand truly different dudes. And when I say different dude, just built different and do things differently. Like there ain't many that God created, right? They're just different. So for the rest of us, go freaking work for it. Because like to your point, you gotta bring something to the table that's gonna differentiate you. And if you think putting all your eggs in one basket, all you're gonna do is learn that. You're never learning the other part. A different and here's the deal. You're like me wrestling. One-on-one, right? Guys who play back, you're at the foul line by yourself. Everybody's watching. Experiences that build. It's where you don't care anymore. I'm good, bro. I can live in success and failure, and I'll be uncomfortable, but I'll survive it. As opposed to making everything be live and die by success or failure on one play that can be hidden in a game of 11.
When you lift, what do you like to listen to?
Oh, that's a great question. So it depends. Like if I'm doing heavy day, it'll be rock. I'll get down to some rock and some that kind of stuff. When I run, I like to run. I'm training for my first half marathon with my daughter in this month. Easy going, like easy, right? I want like easy stuff, and then I love Christian music. So doing my mobility stuff, or like at the end, I can do all that, whether it's worship music or rap or rock. I can kind of do all of those kind of. But if I'm getting that, you can rest assured some classic rock's getting turned up and getting after it that way.
What's a bucket list adventure you haven't done and it's just you and your wife?
Ooh, so we love to travel. And I'll be honest, we are bucket list people. I would probably say dive the Great Barrier Reef is done yet. And the one that I would love to do, having my youngest just graduated high school, he'll go to Clemson in this next fall. Kids in sport for, dang near 20 years. So we haven't been able to get that because it's such a far away. But I want to do that. I think that'd be a
Just short side note, if you can, tell everybody on the planet, and you included, listen to my episode 51 with 𝗀𝗃𝗀𝘀𝗀. His arms stopped growing at the elbow, both of them. His legs stopped growing at the knee. He fought jiu-jitsu professionally. He was nationally ranked in wrestling, not wrestling handicapped people, just wrestling. No arms, no legs past the joints. And he dove at the Great Barrier Reef with one of my other guests, Jeff Gum, a Navy SEAL, and he's coming back up. And part of him, he gets stuck on a reef and he can't get out, and he's going to die. And Jeff free dives down there and saves him and pulls him back up. The same guy, 𝗀𝗃𝗀𝘀𝗀, he won an ESPY. ESPN's out a documentary. No Excuses is his book. He speaks internationally, and he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, 19,000 feet. You've done a bear crawl before. He did the whole damn thing in a bear crawl, right? But
I've seen a lot of his stuff. It's unbelievable. I've seen a lot of stuff.
What's favorite sports movie?
Oh man, that's a tough one, dude. I mean, like I love For Love of the Game with Costner. I loved Hoosiers. I thought that was a great one. I'm trying to think if there's any good football. The program would probably be the best football because that was right when I was going to college. We were all meatheads, you know what I mean? So that
starting defense, place at the table, Latimer.
So, yeah, man. I mean, I think all of those would be probably the top ones.
Gotcha. You got a favorite book?
Oh, I'm a big reader. So I would tell you, I read the Bible every day. That's my favorite book. I read it every day. And that's not just brings me a level of peace that I can't explain. So I read some portion of the Bible every day. But I love like James Patterson, Obi. I when I travel, so I love those style books. I love like historical, like true, kind of some true history, war books. I enjoy those kinds of things, but I couldn't tell you if I have like a favorite one other than that. I just love to read and be entertained that way.
Awesome. This next two questions, it could be fiction or nonfiction.
Okay.
Favorite hero and villain.
Oh, favorite hero and villain. Oh man. I say my mom, probably my hero. She was a single mom for a while, raising my sister and I, and just the way. And she is a godly woman who helped lead me to Christ, and has that impact throughout has been monumental. So that's a real one. She's a 4:30, 5 a.m. on her knees praying in the living room, like true warrior, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's heroic in my mind. And then villain, that's a great one. I'm trying to think of my favorite villain. Probably Lex Luthor, like Superman back in the day, Gene Hackman. Like what a great he was a great villain. And then the Penguin. I think it was Danny DeVito. Wasn't Danny DeVito
Yep.
Penguin? I love those two villains in movies. I enjoyed. I thought both of those were solid.
I usually vote Hannibal Lecter as a
that-
villain. A lot of people like the Joker with Heath Ledger. I get a bunch of Darth Vaders. You got a favorite lift?
Favorite lift? I love the bench. I'm a
Okay.
big. I was good at the bench. I did 525 was the most ever, but that was a I love the bench. I'm built for it. You know what I mean? So, and it doesn't hurt nearly as much as clean and squats.
Yeah. How about a quote?
Quote, and that's a big quote guy. I mean,
Right.
I think fatigue makes cowards of us all is a great one for prep, but I don't have I just that I just rely on constantly.
Where can people find you if they were looking other than ESPN?
Twitter, I'm on or X, whatever it's called now. I'm at Saturday Jeff, and then I'm on Instagram, and I'm gonna sound terrible. I think it's Jeff Saturday 63. So, but that's Otherwise, they're gonna find me traveling or on some piece of water somewhere, lake, ocean, something, doing something in water, or a farm. Those are the places I'll be.
Beautiful. Jeff's just a good old boy from the South that worked really hard and had a lot of ups and downs along the way, and a lot of people are better for it. Jeff, we're better for it for having you on the show today. We learned a lot, and thrilled to funnel all this information out to other folks, helping make an impact and get them better. And it was a gift having you on today, Jeff. Thanks so much. For those that want to reach out, info@athlete-builder.com. Remember, books are up and running. The book is how you if you want to do it yourself, if you don't want to work with me, but you want to do it yourself, use the book. And how do you do that? The accountability piece is all in that planner. It's a 3-month planner, tracking your habits and getting you better, doing all the assessments on all 6 of those things. So, Jeff, great having you. Hope we can cross paths again down the road. I'll definitely get a hold of Devon and thank him again, but really appreciate the gift of having you on today.
Sounds great, Jim. Appreciate you, brother. Had a blast, man.
All right. Have a good one.